You're tuned in to the Dr. Kinney Show, and I'm your host, Dr. Erin Kinney, a naturopathic doctor and speaker dedicated to unraveling the mysteries of your body and guiding you back into balance. Let's get started. Hey, real quick, guys, before we start the episode, I want to share something that I'm really excited about. I know how hard it can be when your hormones feel out of balance, low energy, mood swings, and not feeling like yourself, which is why I created the supplement line Optimal Harmony. With natural science-backed ingredients, it's designed to support your hormones, stabilize your mood, and help you reclaim your energy and confidence, because when your hormones are balanced, everything feels easier. You deserve to feel amazing every day, so let Optimal Harmony line of supplements help you get there. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Dr. Kinney Show. This week, I'm really pleased to have joining me my good friend and colleague, Tara DeLeon, who is an amazing personal trainer, author of a fantastic book, Hot Mess to Hot Mom, which we're going to talk about, and she is clearly a very hot mom. So thank you for being on the show. She was on the show a couple of years ago, so if you want to go back and listen to that episode, you can. We talked a lot about strength training and some other things, but we're going to have a cool conversation about her book and how it's such a helpful tool if you are a mom and you're trying to get your life back. It is the book for you.
This is the whole point of the book.
So can you share your story again and kind of tell us,
sure.
like, how did you end up writing this book? And
Sure. Thanks so much for having me,
course.
first of all. So I had a son 4.5 years ago, and it was during COVID, right? So that adds like a whole nother element to it. But postpartum, I just noticed the care was super lacking.
Yeah.
You know, they checked me in the hospital. They were like, all right, go home. Good luck. Here's a baby. I hope you know what you're doing.
You can exercise. You can have sex. See you later.
Yeah. So basically I came back 6 weeks later and I was like, okay, so like everything still feels yucky down there. And they were like, yeah, like you just had a baby. Of course it does. And they're like, but go ahead. You can have sex. You're open for business. And I was like,
You're like,
what?
Are you sure?
I'm like, I'm still bleeding like when I pee, but I can have sex right now? And they were like, sure. So I just felt like that's not a good solution.
Yeah.
And so I asked in my appointment, I said like, okay, so do I need to go to like pelvic floor physical therapy and they were kind of like, well, you can, it probably won't work, but like, sure, feel free to give it a try. And now knowing what I know, I'm like, it probably won't work. Like, come on.
It'll work.
What kind of like medical advice is that?
Yeah.
You know, so I also asked, I was like, hey, like, when does my libido come back? Because, like, I used to enjoy, like, doing stuff, and now I'm, like, completely uninterested. And she was like, oh, when your kid goes to college. And I was like, what? And she goes, oh, wait, and, like, checks her notes. She's like, you'll be in menopause by then, so it's gone forever. And I was just kind of like, what? I'm like 36 years old and you're telling me I'm like never.
You're like, I'm dead inside?
Yeah,
that's not
like,
cool.
What? So that was kind of the trigger. That question was the trigger for like, okay, I used to like who I was as a human being before I became a mom.
Yeah.
So how do I get those feelings back? Like, how do I feel comfortable in my body? How do I feel confident in my body? I used to like exercise a lot, right? I'm a personal trainer. It's part of like what I do. And somehow exercise like didn't feel good anymore, right? Probably because my body wasn't ready for what I was wanting to do. So I kind of started compiling like a little group of experts, people that had actually helped me with my postpartum phase. And I thought like, this is like a great team of people I've got here. And it was actually on the morning of my son's first birthday. It was still COVID, remember? So we're having a birthday party like against my better judgment. And I was in the shower like frantically hoping to be done by the time guests started arriving, since I'd been running around doing all the things beforehand. And I was in the shower and I'm washing my hair and I looked down and realized I'm like, oh my God, when was the last time I shaved my legs? Like, it's been like months. Like, this is like a jungle down here. And I remember thinking like, girl, you got to get your shit together. Like, if you can't even remember the last time you shaved your legs, your child is a year old now. You are not like newly postpartum. When are you going to get back to who you were?
Yeah.
And you never truly go back to who you were, right? Because, like, as you know, having kids changes you completely, as it should. But for me, I felt like, dude, I got to shave my legs like at least once a week. That's going on the to-do list. You know, I got to shower at least twice, and I got to shave my legs one of those times.
I got to feel somewhat human.
Got to be like a little bit human here. So as I was like thinking about my hairy legs, I was like, what else would make me feel like I truly like was healthy, on it, and thriving as a mom, which is kind of where like the hot mom title comes from. Like, It's not really an acronym, but I use it as an acronym, healthy, on it, and thriving. And I thought like, oh, it would be great if I was exercising a couple times a week. It would be great if I had like some social time. It would be really great if I had, like financially, like where do I save for college and, my estate planning and stuff like that. Like I need to kind of get my life together as a parent so that I feel like I'm just kind of thriving through it instead of going like, hope I don't die yet. I didn't get my will done, like... So I was hoping there was a checklist. So I got out of the shower, did the birthday party. And then that night after, the baby was in bed for the first time, I like sat down and Googled like checklist for new moms. And it was stuff like, oh, here's what to pack in your hospital bag. And I thought like, well,
no,
there's got to be more than that, right? And I kept searching and I couldn't find anything. So I was like, I should write this checklist.
Yeah.
And that's basically where that thought stayed for a long time. And then I had a meeting with my business coach like the next year. And she goes, hey, Tara, so what does your ideal work day look like? And I was like, well, being on the beach, not talking to people. Which is so ironic because I talk to people all day long.
Sometimes you need a break. Sometimes you might want a break.
Yes, 100%, right? So she goes, well, you need to write a book then. And I was like, oh, no, I can't write a book. And she was like, why not? And I was like, well, I don't know what to write. And she goes, you totally do. And anyway, we kind of went back and forth. And she was like, hello, you already work with like a bunch of new moms. Like, write the book,
The book that you needed.
The book that I needed. So I thought about it. And she actually hooked me up with a publisher who is a big like fan of doing collaborations with like other professionals. So I reached out to people who I thought might be interested. And like most people said yes, which was awesome. Shocking to me.
Yeah.
But it was great, right? Because now I have like chapters on like strength training, which I wrote, of course, since that's my jam, but also like pelvic floor wellness, how to get your sexy back, mental health.
Yeah.
I was lucky that I didn't have a lot of mental health problems postpartum, although I would argue that I probably did have like postpartum anxiety, and we just didn't have any doctor's appointments, particularly during COVID. So like nobody caught it.
Yeah.
Right.
And oftentimes it doesn't get caught. Sometimes moms don't even realize. Like you just think, oh, I'm anxious because I have a new baby, but
yes,
you don't have to be that anxious.
That's totally like what I wrote it off as, and I kind of mentioned it to my doctor like a year or two later, and she was probably like, oh. Yeah, that's just motherhood. Like, comes with the territory.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like, man, we're like doing our mothers such a disservice by being like, oh, you don't feel like yourself? Yeah, comes with the territory. Oh, you're peeing when you sneeze? Yes, you had a vaginal birth. Oh, you don't feel like having sex anymore? Yeah, hormones are a wild ride.
Sorry, that part of your life's over.
Yeah. Like, we just go like, motherhood. Yeah. And that shouldn't be the answer. Yeah. We deserve to be treated like full human beings, regardless of our parental status.
And I think you said it earlier. You said, yes, obviously having children is going to change your life. But I think I think it really should be looked at like, for the first couple of years, yes, you are going to feel, your body's going to feel different. But I think having children enhances your life.
Yeah, 100%.
And you can be like a better version of the person you were before you had a child. If you choose to look at it that way. And I think if you choose to find providers that will help you find answers to why you don't feel good. Because I think so often women, whether it's postpartum or at any time in life, they're like, well, you're just a woman. You're going through hormonal changes. Like, you'll be fine. Here's some hormone birth control and here's an antidepressant. See you later. Right? Like that's such a common thing that we hear that women get told. And it's kind of not fair.
It's totally not fair. I work with a lot of women in menopause as well, and they're hearing the same things.
Oh, 100%. Oh, you're just in menopause.
It's menopause.
Like,
get used to it.
But the good news is, and as you know, like going through this, there's so many things you can do to make you feel good. This time doesn't have to be a terrible time.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's a change, right? And I think that I always say this when I teach or when I talk, like, women, the only thing constant about being a female is change. Your body is going to change every 7 to 10 years. And if you have a baby, it's going to change even more often, especially if you have multiple children. I get women that come and they're like, I had 4 kids in 6 years. And like, their bodies have changed a lot, right?
Yes.
But so I think as a female, we almost have to learn to embrace change. But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to feel like shit that time, during that change time or after, right?
Yeah, totally. It's like, I saw a meme the other day that was like, oh, like men hit puberty when they're like 14 or 15. And then
they're pretty much the same.
They die like 70 years later. And I was like, what? Like compared to women, how we're just like, even during the course of the month is crazy.
Yeah. Men have like more of a 24-hour cycle, like their testosterone's going to cycle in a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
But it's the same every day of the month. Like we have this like 28-day cycle and change, and then sometimes we don't get a cycle when we're pregnant. I don't know. There's just a lot of different, and there's like a lot of things up in the air.
Breastfeeding's like a wild ride that I think is not talked about enough.
Yeah. How was breastfeeding for you?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, like it was fine at first, but I got mastitis 4 times in 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So clearly I was like doing something wrong.
Were you overproducing?
Underproducing of all things.
Yeah.
And I was like chained to my pump all day, every day. I even had a pump I wore at work, like one of those portable things. Yeah. So I'd be like training my clients like, all right, let's take a rest for a second. You hear like, pss, 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 pss. Yeah. My clients were like, what's happening in there?
Nursing. I struggled so much with nursing too. And I remember, I feel like before I had my first, I was, I had home birth and I was like, I'm going to nurse. I'm going to be one of those moms that only feeds my baby breast milk. And then my daughter had trouble latching and we finally got that figured out, but I would pump for like 3 hours and I would get 2 ounces.
Yes.
And so my daughter was not,
like that too.
And I kept my midwife at the time, she was a lovely woman, but she was very like anti-formula. And she was like, you're just not doing it right. You need, and I had breast surgery earlier in life. So I actually didn't even know if I could nurse. It was amazing that I could, but she was like, you need to take all the things. And I took all the things. And finally after 2 months, my daughter wasn't gaining weight. Like she wasn't thriving. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to add in formula because a fed baby is a happy, healthy baby, right? So we did and once I did that, like my stress levels went down and then I actually started producing more milk and it really saved me.
Yes.
But I think I always tell my new moms that I'm working with, like, hey, like, you want to feed your baby. And if you're struggling, obviously get the support, but it's okay to introduce formula.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Like it is, you want to feed your baby, right?
I'm totally like a fed is best person.
Yes.
And my son went in the NICU. I didn't have any trouble at all during pregnancy, but like labor was a little bit of a wild ride.
Yeah.
Not really because like this is a bit of a tangent, so stop me if this is crazy, but because I was an older mom and I'm in a larger body.
Well, wait, can we just stop there? I love how they call anyone over 35 and old. They're like, you're a geriatric pregnancy.
Yeah,
you're 35, you're not 50.
Yeah. I was like totally taken aback by that.
Yeah.
But I was 36 when I had my son, so I was definitely like one foot in the grave and the other foot on the banana peel. And I'm in a larger body, so that was like a little bit dicey for the healthcare professionals as well. And I was basically misdiagnosed with preeclampsia.
Oh, really?
Like I was totally fine, worked out every day of my not every day, but all throughout my pregnancy, right? Even the day before I was induced, I went and had a workout and that was great. But they had like a nurse in training give me a catheter for my epidural and she like scraped the inside of my urethra with the catheter.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like bleeding and they saw like brown urine and they were like, oh my God, this is gonna go really bad really quickly. So they gave me a lot of drugs that were fine, like it all worked out okay.
Gave you like hydrospitocin to speed things up?
That too.
Yeah.
And I think they gave me magnesium for like the potential preeclampsia.
Yeah.
But it's known to make babies get born with like breathing problems.
Yeah.
So they immediately like whisked my son away to the NICU. So he was in there for like 4 days.
Oh God.
I was not in there for 4 days. I wasn't even allowed to get up out of my bed for 24 hours after delivery. So they like one kind nurse like snuck me in once for like 20 minutes.
Yeah. So you didn't get to bond with the baby.
No. So there was no like skin to skin.
Yeah.
There was no delayed cord clamping.
Yeah.
There was nothing like that. It was definitely like a medical emergency when he was born. So, they were giving him formula in the NICU.
Oh, so he'd already had it.
And so when he came home, it was like, I was like, here's my boob. He's like, gross.
Gross. I got formula.
He's like,
give me the bottle.
I've got a bottle? Yeah. I know how easy that milk comes out. Like, get that thing away from me.
Yeah.
Eventually we like worked through it, right? But he was like combo fed the whole time. And honestly, I was grateful for it.
Yeah.
It's amazing that we have the science to like closely replicate breast milk.
Yeah, I think it is amazing. But I think I'm glad you shared that tangent because I think so many women go through, they have this idea of what their birth's going to be like and sometimes it doesn't go that way. Yeah. But you think, and obviously they were paying attention to you while you were in the hospital, but I feel like what happens is you go home and then suddenly it's all about the baby. Yes. And the mom, you get the 1 6-week checkup and that's like, and they're just like, yeah, you're postpartum. Like, good luck. Have fun with that. Like, unless you have severe postpartum depression. But otherwise, moms don't really get that much support, especially in this country. You don't get much time
Agreed.
off of work. Like, so in other countries, I feel like they set you up with like a mother's group and you get a year off. I have a good friend who had her babies in Australia.
Oh, cool.
She had a year off, a year maternity leave for both babies. And every time she had a kid, they would set her up with several other moms that had babies like within a month. So she had this immediate mom support group, all with kids the same age. And I feel like just what a different experience, right? Like,
I feel like I was super lucky in that my bestie at the time was pregnant. We found out we were pregnant the same day.
Oh, that's so
We
fun.
were due 2 days apart, and
so
we
you
gave
had some
birth
good
like a week
support.
apart. So I did have her support.
That's awesome.
But with it being like full COVID, it was also a little bit like,
yeah.
I'm glad
That's
you're
the other thing,
here,
like
but
the
don't get too
trauma
close.
of having a baby during that COVID year. Did you have your son in 2020?
Yeah, July of 2020.
Wow, that was like pretty early COVID.
It was.
Yeah.
It was pretty early COVID. I don't recommend it.
Well, hopefully we never have to go through that again. Yeah, but again, I think a lot of moms go through, it's trauma. Like having a baby, even if it's exactly how you want it to be, it's still traumatic for your body,
Yes,
right? Like
100%.
It is still trauma that you have to heal from and recover from, and on a physical level and an emotional level.
Yes. And I think so many moms don't like give themselves the grace of like, hey, you just created like a whole nother human being.
Yeah.
Like this is a miracle that just happened.
Yeah.
Let your body recover from it, and it's okay to like not jump right into the same things that you used to do.
Yeah.
The phrase like bounce back is the bane of my existence.
Yeah, I want to bounce back quickly.
Bounce back, get your body back. Like what?
Yeah.
Don't erase all the evidence that you just did this miraculous thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, so let's talk about like, okay, a new mom comes to see you, they're working out, or like oftentimes they're coming to see you to work out, right? Like
always,
yeah. So what are like some of the things that you're talking to them other than like the strength training and that thing? Like what are you, like from the book, like what are your biggest pieces of advice for a new mom?
Yeah, so when I meet with a new mom, I usually like do a kind of casual screening.
Yeah.
I don't call it that because it sounds a little scary sometimes. But like I'm asking them about pelvic floor issues. I'm asking them about like pain or leakage or if they have returned to like sexual activity. I'm asking them about mental health stuff, you know, not because that's what I'm qualified to deal with, but I've cultivated a whole network of people that I refer my clients to. Like it takes a village, not just to raise the baby, but to help mom, find herself again. So like this book is all about the village, right?
Yeah.
So I'm asking them about libido. I'm asking them about pelvic floor issues. I'm asking them about body image. Like, how do they feel in their body? Some women I find are like super empowered. Like, oh my God, I grew this human and I'm creating food for it.
Yeah.
And they're very like into it. And then others are like, my titties are saggy.
I feel giant. They're so big.
Right. So like it spans the gamut. And if they're like deep into like miracle zone, like awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we lean into that. And if they're like, I feel
really
like
struggling.
I'm having a hard time with this. Like we talk about it.
Yeah.
And
maybe find the right support for them, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
If it's outside of my scope, which most of it is, we refer them out.
Yeah. But I think that's so helpful. I mean, I think, and I talk about this a lot on the show, like, especially in that postpartum time, you need a ton of support. Yes, for the baby, but you as a mom need a ton of support. And it's fantastic, to go to a provider like Tara, who, yes, you're going to her to work out, but she's going to have other resources for you, right? And this is where like a good provider, they're going to do what they're going to do. But a good provider should make sure that they're asking all these questions and being like, okay, you know what? Like, I think we need to think about therapy, like, or some other support, or I don't know. I think your book is fantastic because it's really about like finding the new who you are, right? Like, and like making sure you feel good about yourself in some way. So maybe that could be like, hey, you might be like, well, my hair looks crap because I didn't get it dyed for it. And like, maybe go see your hairdresser, right?
Yes.
Like sometimes
that's part of it too.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like, oh, like maybe you want to go and like get a facial, like something that makes you feel somewhat normal, like you were before you had a baby, right?
100%. With it being COVID, when I had my son, like I didn't have my hair cut for like a year at least. And so a lot of like the postpartum pictures I have, I'm like, oh,
we gotta get used to haircut.
Those are some split ends. I of course coped by like just putting filters on Instagram to make it like really textured looking.
Yes. Thank God for Instagram filters. They can be helpful sometimes.
Right. But it's definitely one of those things where like, hey, go get a massage.
Yeah.
Just because you created this human doesn't mean you're not still you.
Yeah.
And you don't deserve time for yourself. Like, you deserve to eat a good meal.
Yeah.
You deserve to like exercise. You deserve to get a massage or a facial or have your nails
take a
done.
bath or have a date night with your partner or your husband.
Yes.
Or and I think sometimes it's literally just like figuring out how to carve out the time for those things, right? I think when you're a new mom, particularly, like obviously your schedule changes a lot. You're not getting as much sleep. And, and what about working moms? Do you have any like specific tips for them?
Okay, so like being a mom is really hard.
Yes.
I would argue that being a working mom, in my experience, is also like ridiculously hard.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's harder because I know like stay-at-home moms also are working in the home.
Yeah, it's like choose your hard, right?
But oh my gosh, for me, it's like a childcare dilemma.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, everything's good when it's good, but then
when kids get sick,
there's
or
a snow day, or the
school,
school, is closed, or the kid is sick, or whatever. It's like all of a sudden it's this panic thing.
Yeah.
So something that I talk about with my working moms all the time is just like, hey, roll with it.
Yeah.
Like the days are long, but the years are short.
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot. And it totally feels like this big stressful thing while we're in it. But like in the grand scheme of things, like
they're
it'll
only
be okay.
with us for so long. But it's hard. And I think particularly like during those COVID years, if you were a working mom and your kids were at home on Zoom school or virtual school, that was a really tricky time.
I can't imagine.
It was a tricky time. I think because I was working a ton during COVID because people were not feeling well and everyone was super stressed out. I was treating all the working moms that were like, oh my God, their kids were in the background and they were yelling at them. But thank God I had a nanny that would come to my house to watch my kids and manage homeschool. Otherwise, I'm not sure what I would have done.
I think COVID was hard for everyone.
COVID was really hard.
Like I had friends that canceled weddings, and I had, friends whose kids didn't get to graduate from high school and have prom and stuff like that, like rites of passage, right? But I will say, like, having a baby, I thought at the time was really hard during COVID, but having like little kids and having to put them on virtual school sounds like a really special type of torture.
Yeah. There was a couple weeks ago, there was snow day. The kids were all home and they'd run through their snow days, so they were doing virtual school. And we were having like flashbacks to COVID.
Yeah, like
oh
PTSD.
God, PTSD. We got to get
this
Zoom, and the kids are all complaining because they can't get hooked up. And
totally.
But I think, I work with so many stressed out women, whether they're postpartum or just various other points in life where they're stressed out. And I think sometimes like the micro practices that you can do to find time for yourself can be the biggest help, right? Hey, I'm going to go take 10 minutes and lay down and put my toes up, or I'm going to lock the door when I'm in the bathroom and I'm going to listen to a podcast or something. It's finding like the minimum, because sometimes, and I think particularly if you're a working mom, obviously everyone would love to go get a massage and get acupuncture, do all these things, but sometimes that's not feasible, right?
Yes.
Especially on days if kids are sick in childcare. Like,
you've got kids, you may not have the money for it because childcare is outrageously expensive.
Yeah. So but I think finding like setting an intentional, like, hey, I'm going to find 2 20-minute, breaks throughout the day where I'm going to take time for myself, or I'm going to find 2 10-minute break, or whatever it is. It's a small increment.
There's a trend right now in fitness to call
exercise snacks.
It's called exercise snacks.
Yes, we talked about that on one of my previous episodes, right? It's like you pick up your dumbbells and you do those for or you do some squats, or you just take a quick walk.
Honestly, like the best thing you can do for yourself, like metabolically, is like, after every meal, just go walk for 10 minutes.
Oh, 100%.
And it doesn't even have to be like you're running, like you're sweating and out of breath. It's just like go move.
Yeah. Or there was a recent thing that went around Instagram. It was like, hey, if you do 10 body weight squats, it's like the equivalent. I mean, I'm not actually sure, but they said it's the equivalent of taking a 10-minute walk. So like, if you can't get outside, if it's raining, stand. Yeah, maybe not.
Like,
but it's still movement,
it's not going to be bad for you. So like, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and I think that so many of us get caught up. This was a huge mindset shift for me after I had my son. Is in my mind, I'm like, if you're not going to the gym and taking like an hour and a half, like you got to get there. That takes 10 minutes. And then you're going to warm up for 10 minutes. Then you're going to do your hour of stuff. And then you're going to cool down and stretch for 10 minutes. And then you're going to shower, and then you're going to drive back. It's like all of a sudden you're at like 2.5 hours. And
long
like,
time.
Who has that time? Nobody has that time, especially as a new mom. So for me, like I work out 2 to 4 times a week for like 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah. I think the shorter.
And like, is it ideal? Probably not. We should probably be
doing it is.
like 150 minutes a week of like cardio type exercise for like ideal benefits. But for like this time in your life, if the answer is nothing or
Yeah.
4 30-minute workouts, then that's
take
the
the 4 30-minute. And sometimes I actually think, when you're in this time, your adrenals are really struggling because, you've had so much stress, especially after a new baby, you didn't sleep through the night probably for a year or two, depending on how good of a sleeper your kid is. So your adrenals tend to be a little bit under functioning. Yeah. And exercise, we love exercise, but it is a stress.
It's a stress,
right?
absolutely.
It's going to burn your adrenals out even more. So sometimes it's actually helpful to not work out as much during this phase.
Yeah,
Still move your body, but you might not be needing to do hour and a half at the gym 5 times a week, right? I think what you mentioned can be actually more beneficial for your hormones overall.
Totally agree.
Right?
I actually put a workout for new moms in the book, and it's twice a week walking.
Yeah.
Take your baby.
Yeah,
it doesn't
take
have
baby,
to be intense.
push the stroller.
And it's twice a week lifting. And the lifting workouts are probably half an hour.
Yeah.
Once you get the hang of it, maybe 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's and then you're done.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yeah, and the lifting. Let's talk a little bit about the strength training because I know that's such an important piece. You want to talk? I mean, we've done a lot of episodes on this, but I feel let's hear your take on it's so important.
Lifting is arguably the most important kind of exercise you can do.
Yeah.
I don't want to minimize that and say oh, it's way better than cardio because obviously heart and lungs are essential,
important. Yeah.
Right? But lifting makes everything feel a little bit easier.
Yep.
It increases your body image more than anything else ever will. I will maintain till the day I die that you can't have a bad day when you've had a good lift.
Yeah.
You walk out of the gym knowing
I'm so strong. I feel good.
I feel good. Come at me, life. I've got this.
Yeah. So the mental, emotional benefits are
totally
top notch. I mean, I feel you get that from cardio sometimes, but particularly I think when you're in a stressful period, what patients will be I feel great after I do a cardio, but then later in the day, they get a dip.
Yes.
Versus with a lift, that doesn't really happen.
Yes, it just maintains forever. Mm-hmm. Not to mention it increases your resting metabolic rate, which is helpful.
More muscle mops up more glucose, so it helps prevent aging. It helps. It helps with longevity. The more muscle you have, the better you're going to feel, and the better your body's going to age.
Absolutely. And it's just you have to be strong to be a mom.
Yeah.
If you've ever picked up one of those little tiny car seats that your itty bitty baby sits in, once the baby's in it, that thing is heavy.
Oh, yeah.
And it's awkward. You have to carry it out here. So it's not you're just picking up this 20-pound item.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's it's bulky and weird. You have to be strong to be a mom.
Yeah, so it's almost go lift because you're training to be a better mom.
Yes.
Carry all the things.
I always think it's wild, too, when people quit training during pregnancy. I'm pregnant. And I'm wait, do you not know how pregnancy ends? Because
with a baby? With labor?
You've got a real long marathon coming up.
That's a good point. That's
a really good point. You definitely don't want to skimp on
on
training.
That's funny you say that. I feel I used to be a huge runner and ran multiple marathons in my 20s, and I feel after my second birth in particular, I felt I'd run a marathon.
Yeah.
I labored basically squatting, standing over bed for hours, and my quads were they were
shaking.
More sore than my vaginal tissue. I was sore for weeks. I was what? When is this gonna end?
Yes.
But I basically was standing up the whole time I was
totally.
In labor. But yeah, it is. It's like a marathon. I mean, you're physically active for anywhere from 4 to 20 hours. It's actually longer than a marathon for a lot of people.
Yeah. I was in labor for 30 hours.
Oh yeah, that's a long labor.
So luckily the first 6 hours were not anything, but the last 24 were pretty hard.
Pretty intense, yeah.
So, I think it's kind of silly to go into that untrained unless you have some sort of medical contraindication, right?
Yeah.
And then that is what it is. But for the rest of us, we should be training for that. And then training for postpartum.
Yeah.
I shared earlier that I worked out during my whole pregnancy because that's just part of what I did. But then after 4 days in the hospital, we had to park our car really super far away because it was COVID, right? So all the entrances were closed except one. And we had gone home. I'd been discharged. I went home, took a shower, and then we came back to visit the baby. And I had to stop halfway down this long hallway. There was a bench there, and I was babe, I gotta rest for a minute. And he was who are you? Yeah. And I was I don't know, my legs are just super
sore.
weak.
Yeah.
I'm sore, I'm weak, I don't know. So I sat down for 5 minutes and then we continued on. But not having trained for that would be even worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then on top of that with no sleep and, worrying about all the things. And then still maintaining your life, right? Like, you don't get to stop taking care of your pets just because you had a baby,
or
right?
paying your bills,
or paying your bills,
dealing with your family,
housework, you know, that kind of stuff. So like, you're still doing a lot, and on top of it, you're taking care of a new little one, which requires an enormous amount of energy. So like, being strong enough to like deal with anything that life throws at you, I think is just like an essential part of being a mom.
So many things moms have to go through.
Totally.
So many things. So what else in the book? What else you got? What other good chapters are in there?
So I really like this chapter about like Ayurvedic tradition.
Yeah.
So that's not something that I'm an expert in, but Melissa Maxwell wrote a chapter on that. And she basically advocates for like, you have your baby, go home and then don't get out of bed for like a week.
Yeah.
You know,
that
just
was
like
what my
recover.
midwives were like. You are not allowed to do stairs they told me 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I had to stay upstairs, and I was actually pretty good about it with both kids. Cause like there's so much deep healing. There's so many muscles.
Totally. So many muscles in there.
Yeah.
I also was told to not do stairs. Of course, I had like 10 stairs to get to my front door. So
you had to do that sometimes.
There was that, but. For the most part, I didn't do stairs either.
Yeah.
And I do think it helped.
I think it really helps. Yeah.
And I have a lot of clients that are kind of like anxious to be like, I have to go out and walk. I have to do, and I'm like, not when you're newly postpartum.
Yeah, that's what, like good, like 4 to 6 weeks, like you really chill and heal. And
chill
then you'll
and
actually have an
heal.
easier time getting back into it, like when you are feeling up for it.
I do think that's like super underrated because we feel guilty about it, right? Because we're always hearing like, you should exercise, you need to move your body every day, and you know the rules change when you're newly postpartum.
Yeah.
Once it's been 6, 8, 12 weeks, like go for it.
And once you've been cleared, once you've seen,
you know.
Yeah, but I think that deep
rest is important.
rest
But in the beginning, that
important.
healing is just essential.
Well, you just mentioned the word guilt. I feel like maybe that's a topic we should cover. I think guilt as a mom is something that we feel in all, right? Especially if you're a working mom. I know when my kids were little and I was working probably actually a lot more because I was building my business and trying to, I was going out to all the things, and I was like, I got to make money and all these things. But every time I was at work, I was feeling guilty that I wasn't with my kids. And when I was with my kids, I was guilty that I wasn't building my business. And that's something I hear from moms a lot. And it's a really hard one.
I struggle with that myself, you know, like I am an entrepreneur, I'm a mom, you know, my son is 4.5 now. And I had to work late last night and I had to work early this morning. So like my interaction with him was like a 5-minute cuddle this morning, you know, and it's like, what kind of motherhood is that? But at the same time, you know, like that's life. Right? It's not every day, but sometimes that's just the way it is.
Yeah. But I think that's where like working with a coach or a therapist to kind of help you work through that, because it doesn't feel good to be living in that, like in the guilty, you know, or feeling guilty, like, you know, in that post, oh my God, I should be working out. I should be doing this. I should be XYZ. Like, you know, I think women need to just stop like shooting all over themselves.
Really. Right. Like, what is it that tells us we have to do this thing? Like social media, our friends, our mother-in-law? Like
sometimes I think it's external, but sometimes I think it's we put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect in every way. Well, I need to be perfect in my business growing or my job. I need to be perfect as a mom. And I think that like hustle culture is like really toxic. Yeah, the hustle culture. It's also like addictive. It's hard to get out of that. You know, like I think about my friends, and the last time I heard somebody say like, dude, I'm real happy just where I am, is like, I don't know that I've ever heard that. We always want something else. And I think it's okay to want something else, but I think the real like flex is figuring out like, hey, how can I be like really excited and really happy and feel really good about where I am now, but still be open to like more expansion and things coming your way. And I feel like what opportunities, when you are happy with where you're at, that's when like the new opportunities come even more. I completely agree. The manifest thing, but it's like attracting it. Yeah. I work with a life coach. I've been working with her for a long time, and we talk about this like guilt thing a lot because it still comes up for me. I feel like I'm at a point with my business and my practice where I have a lot of time. I've cultivated. I'm like, I want to spend a good amount of time with my kids. Like that's really important to me. Like time for me is like time freedom is like number one. Yes. Like more than money. I'm like, I 100%. Would like time to be with my family and be with my kids. But there are still mornings. Like this morning I had to be early, and I didn't get to see my daughter off on the bus, and she's 12, but she's like in this phase where she needs her mom a lot, right? Like emotions are going through all the stuff, and like she's like needs a lot of mom time. But so we've, but I also like, my coach is like, hey, but how cool is it that your daughter gets to see you being an entrepreneur, like putting yourself out there. Like she started listening to my podcast and like, you know, and she loves to, you know, if you follow me on social media, you know, she's like sometimes like does videos for me and like, and she's, you know, so I have to kind of like shift it like, hey, I really want my daughter to be proud of the work that I'm doing in the world. Yeah. And I think it's cool for her to see like, hey, I've created this life where I can spend time with my kids, but I do also have this career that I love. Yes. Right.
I had a really similar thought a couple weeks ago. Someone approached me about doing like a government contract, which would be overseeing like multiple gyms at different army bases. And I called my husband and I was like, I'm a little bit nervous. Yeah. You know, like I don't even live in those states. Like it's not like if there's an emergency, I could like pop by and fix it. Yeah. And he was like, babe, like,
but that's amazing.
That's
such
amazing.
A cool opportunity.
No, what a cool opportunity. And I was like, well, I don't know. It's a lot of time away from the family. And he was like, dude, what a good example to show your son that like mom doesn't play small. Yeah. You know, that you're willing to like be scared and take the risk and do the things if you feel like it's a good fit for your life. Yeah. You know, and I was kind of like, whoa, that is a good point. Like, it's time away from my family, but also the example I'm setting is going to pay off in the future. Yeah. You know, hopefully my future daughter-in-law will thank me.
Yeah. Like, good job, Tara. Good job raising your son. Yeah, but I think sometimes the guilt stuff still comes up, but I think what I've kind of, the practice that I like to do is like, okay, when I'm at work, if I'm constantly thinking about the fact that I'm guilty that I'm not with my kids, I'm not actually being 100%. I'm not actually like showing up 100% for my patients, for my business, for my employees, whatever. So like it's almost like whatever you're into, be 100% there. Yes. And then when you're with your kids, be 100% with your kids. And I know that's not an easy shift to happen overnight, but I think that's like the more
so worth
like,
it though.
Yeah. So and that's something, and that might be something like, again, get support if you're really struggling with that. Like someone can help you like walk through that and help figure out like, hey, where's that guilt coming from? Like, what's the underlying thing?
I like love diving in with people, and it's something I get to do in my job all the time, right? Because we're working out, but we're also chatting, right? Yeah. So this kind of stuff comes up a lot, and it's easy for me to be fully involved because I remember, like, hey, my clients are paying me a lot of money for this time. Like, you can't be looking at your phone, you know, unless there's like an emergency or something. So for me, it's kind of like cut and dry. But what I find when I'm unhappy is when there's an emergency or something, and I'm working from home while simultaneously like supervising
when you're trying to do two things at once.
So I'm trying to do two things at once and I'm doing all of it badly. Then I notice that I'm like very unhappy.
Yeah. Because it doesn't feel good to feel like guilt doesn't feel very good. Yeah.
Don't love it.
Yeah. It's not. But you know, if you're listening and you're a mom, you probably have experienced that emotion at some point because you know, we as much as we would like to be, we cannot be all the things all the time for everyone. Right?
I think this even happens even before you give birth. Yeah. You know, with like what you're eating, how much you're exercising, you're sleeping, you know, any substances you're putting in your body, like, you know, like the guilt is instantaneous almost. Yeah. But I think it is something worth working on.
Yeah, it's definitely something worth working on. Because the ultimate goal, I think, you know, when you're kind of trying to reclaim yourself is you want to feel good in your life, right? You want to wake up every morning and be like, hey, I feel good. I like what I'm doing. I enjoy my kids. Yeah. Like, and obviously that's not going to be 100% of the time.
Healthy on it and thriving, you know?
Yeah. Hot mom. You want to be healthy on it and thriving. I think that's like fantastic. And sometimes it's like, you just got to like set that intention in the morning. Somebody just sent me this video. It's some old video. And it's like this little, I don't know, she's like 5 and she's like looking in the mirror and she's like, I love my school and I love my friends and I love my mom. And she just goes on this full like love rampage and like, I'm like, wow, that's so cute. Like, I want to feel that way every day. Like, you know, like, and sometimes doing that can make you feel good. Like, ooh, I love my coffee. I love my, you know, whatever it is that you love. Just go on a little like love rampage. I'm gonna start
doing that.
It feels good. I have a running tab on my computer. I call it like my I love journal. And when I'm in a bad mood and I can't get out of it, I just will start thinking about, okay, well, I like horses and I like chocolate and I like my dog and I just start and then like you start thinking about the things that make you feel good and then you're like, oh, and I also like that and it just like snowballs
and
it flips your brain into a better place. So it's like a fun little hack. I do it with my kids too when they're grumpy. I'm like, wait, I know you're mad, but talk to me about your favorite stuffed animal. Tell me how much you love that thing. And then she'll be like, oh yeah, I do really like Nessie. She's my favorite stuffed animal. She'll be like, and I like my doll. And I just watch her brain like spin herself out of a bad mood.
Yes, I have a little hack for that too. I call it the pause and reframe. The other day I was like really bent out of shape because my son's school closed early for some reason. And I was like, oh,
some unknown reason. They're like, we're just going to close early today.
Yeah. You know, like who knows? But I was like stressing because I'm like, oh my gosh, I had 2 more clients. One of them's virtual, so I could do that from home with him. But that's going to be horrible because, right, split focus. Like, what do I do? What do I do? And then I ended up canceling my afternoon and like taking care of my son because like priorities. And I was super mad. Like I walked out up to the gym like, oh, this is such trash. Like I can't believe the school is closing and for how much money I pay. And I was like spiraling myself into like bad mood.
Yeah.
And then something just like was like, chill. Let's be grateful that you have like an extra 4 hours
with your
to
son.
Spend with your child.
Yeah.
Like what fun stuff can we get into? And I picked up my son from school and I'm like, hey bud, what kind of trouble do you want to get into today? And he was like, the fun kind. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Like we went to the park, we went to the playground, we made cookies at home.
So you like turned like a not great situation into
yeah. I just think pausing and reframing, like, hey, does it suck that your day got thrown off your schedule? Totally. But the benefit here is you get to spend extra time with your loved ones.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think sometimes we get so caught up in like what should be that we forget what the benefit is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So pause and reframe.
Pause and reframe. I like that. I like that a lot. So talk to me about if people are local and they want to work with you. Talk about that, and then we'll talk about where they can find the book.
Totally. So I have a couple ways that I help people. If you're here local, I'm a personal trainer. I'm at Edgewater Fitness, and I do some other stuff around town too. So if you're like, oh, I hate Edgewater, like you don't have to go there.
Yeah.
So I work with clients online. I have an asynchronous personal training app that I use where I can give you your programs and then we check in every week just to kind of keep you on the right path. Or if you need a little bit more accountability, like you're the kind that might not make it to the gym without an appointment, I do that too via FaceTime or Zoom.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really like COVID has like some horrible things, but it really opened up some stuff for us.
Yeah.
So I do that in personal training. I also have a podcast.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Yeah, talk about your podcast. I didn't even mention that. You have a fantastic podcast.
Yes. So it's called Wellness Rebranded, and it's me, a dietitian, and a mental health therapist, and we kind of talk about what's actual wellness and what's like diet culture.
Yeah.
You know, hustle culture kind of run amok.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of like myth busting and really looking at wellness from the lens of what wellness actually is rather than what your body looks like.
Yes.
So that's free.
Which is great. So definitely go check out her podcast.
You can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts. Yeah. And I also have the book, which you can get on Amazon.
Fantastic. So, great read. Highly recommend
Hot
it.
Mess to Hot Mom.
Yeah. I love that photo on the front.
Maureen Porto is a gifted photographer.
Oh, did she take that photo?
Yes.
Oh, good job, Maureen. That's fantastic.
And she came up with the idea. I was kind of like, okay, I need to portray like hot mess mom.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, that's easy.
Yeah, that's
think of all the things that moms do, like laundry and kettlebells.
If you're listening and not watching this, she's like in a robe. She's carrying the baby. She's got rollers in her hair, and she's got the computer on the ironing board. It's perfect.
So this is her vision come to life, but I love it.
It's awesome. Well, thank you, Tara. Is there anything else you want to share or talk about?
I think we covered it.
I think this is a great chat. So thank you so much for being on the show again.
Thanks for having me.
Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll see everyone next week.
Thank you for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to connect with me on social media to find more helpful tips and information. You can find me at Dr. Kinney on all of the platforms. And please be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and/or a review. This helps grow the show so more people have access to this knowledge that leads to empowered healing. Love and light, and see you next week.